This is where I grew up, on my parents' farm on the edge of Snowdonia. Most people feel that there's something special about the place they come from. They say that the folk are nicer and the landscape has something magical about it. And in my case, after traveling and performing all over the world, I certainly think that's true. Well, mountains, castles, 360 miles of coastline, lakes, you name it, North Wales has it all. And I could see most of it from the farm I grew up in. Over that mountain, Graig Goch, is the summit of Snowdon. And you know what? I have never climbed it. I've always wanted to sing in some of these places, especially the summit of Wales's highest mountain. I'll have to take my music, perhaps a piano. Let's hope the weather's good. There we go. There are so many amazing places around here that I've taken for granted over the years. So I'm going on a journey of discovery to some of these fabulous locations in my own backyard. I think I've been incredibly spoilt by the environment in which I spent my childhood. This river on my parents' farm is where I learned to fish and where my brother and I fought epic battles against giants and monsters. My family's farm is on the slopes of Mynydd Graig Goch, meaning Red Rock Mountain, right on the edge of Snowdonia National Park. And Dad is still working hard here, raising sheep. Welsh is our first language, of course. Even the dogs speak it around here. Yeah, a bit of a spotty teenager with a very rough haircut.
Yes, yes.
Scraggy look, I remember it was called,
yes,
wasn't it?
Yes, and your grandmother wasn't very pleased because you didn't wear a tie.
Oh, okay, right. So if we were close to Graig Goch, and of course the visitors would stay in the house when they came in the summer.
Yes.
We never went up to Snowdon, did we? Did we with the visitors that were here, or we just never went?
But we always went up Graig Goch with the visitors.
We went up this mountain, but not
the
nearest
one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Was it because the train was too expensive, or?
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't that. No, it was farm work, and your mother was working as well, and you were at school.
Yeah.
We didn't bother to go up Snowdon.
So we had enough to do on the farm, really.
Yes.
Didn't we?
Yeah.
But you went up for the sunrise and jump.
Yeah. To see the sunrise in the morning.
Well,
Did
that's-
We
that's what
started
you
about
said.
10 o'clock at night up Snowdon, yeah.
And you stayed up there?
Yeah. Until the morning for the sunrise. Yeah, that was nice. You should do that yourself.
Yeah, I will. 10 miles down the road from my parents' farm is the first stop on my journey, the town of Caernarfon. Many people know of Caernarfon only because of the castle, but for me there's so much more to the place than that. This is the town of my younger days. As a child coming here with my parents, buying toys in these little shops, getting to know the town, and of course in my teenage years getting over that milestone of the first pint girlfriends. This is where I met my future wife. A true iconic town. Wonderful. Perched between the mountains of Snowdonia and the Menai Straits, Caernarfon to me just seems to be steeped in history and tradition. And music, of course. Ah! Well, I was brought up a stone throw away from this, where the mountains meet the sea. Spectacular, mesmerizing. And I guess that's why I live here. The town's main tourist attraction is almost as old as the surrounding hills. The 13th century Edwardian castle is something that I've always had my doubts about. Let's face it, it was built by a conquering English king to keep the Welsh in check. But it's the very thing that made the town famous around the world. Despite living so close, I never really appreciated this castle until I took it over for a whole concert 10 years ago, perhaps giving it back to the Welsh. Was it because I took it for granted? Or was it that I rebelled a little because of all it stood for? Edward I built Caernarfon Castle after his conquest of Wales in 1283. And for the locals, it became a symbol of oppression and foreign occupation for hundreds of years. I've come to find out more about this ancient fortress from Paul Williams, the custodian of Caernarfon Castle. Paul, do you remember when I did that concert here 10 years ago?
I do, yes.
Do you think I should have felt uncomfortable coming into the castle?
700 years ago, you would have been a little unwelcome, yes. This was certainly built as a military fort to keep the Welsh out. That was, and there's no shying away, it was built in a time of conflict, you know. But over the years, I think it's become a symbol of pride for the Welsh. And as you can see today, the flags are flying. It's a Welsh flag above the Eagle Tower. So in a sense, it's become a part of the Welsh identity, I think.
It's okay for you doing this every day, Paul.
Well, it keeps you fit, doesn't it? This is the Eagle Tower.
Yeah.
This is the tallest of the castle's towers, 128 feet high. You can see from here quite clearly the shape of the castle. And it's unique among the Edwardian castles. Edward wanted to establish an imperial style here at Caernarfon. And you can see quite clearly the towers are angular,
Yeah.
whereas Conway, Harlech and so on are circular. And it's meant to evoke imperial Rome, or the walls of Constantinople. Here is one of the original eagles. Of course, the eagles were also used by the Welsh princes as their symbol. And as you know, Bryn, in Welsh, Snowdonia here is, of course, Eryri, the lair of the eagles. Yeah. So this was a new imperial eagle in the old lair of the eagles. It is an amazing location, and it's been here for 725 years.
There's so much history to this place, and with that a long tradition of music, eisteddfodau and choirs. Caernarfon Male Voice is a choir that I've been closely associated with for many years. David Gwynfor Jones is one of the fine voices in the bass section. And over in the tenors is Gerach Jones, a good friend whose father was my singing teacher. Gerach, there's a 9-year-old walking into your house for singing lessons with your dad. It was obvious even then there was music in your household.
There was, and that's the tradition we were brought up in. It's something which my parents have been brought up, and that's how they've lived all their lives.
And David, tell me, what do you get out of this choir?
Probably the pleasure of singing.
Yes.
And the pleasure of friendships. And the trips you get to go on and enjoy.
It's an opportunity to go to places and see people you'd never meet, never come across before.
And I couldn't resist dropping in on the Caernarfon Male Voice Choir's rehearsal and joining David and Gerach in the old spiritual Eyes Weary of Waiting. Old, tired and dreary, take me home again. Master calls me to join him where there's no more pain. And on with the next leg of my journey to a very special place, the magical island of Bardsey, or Ynys Enlli. My friend Richard Tudor is a round-the-world yachtsman, and our voyage from Pwllheli will see us heading west to the tip of the Llŷn Peninsula, so I'm in safe hands. I must go down to the seas again, to the lonely sea and the sky. Although I'm a complete landlubber, Richard has encouraged me to take the helm, and under his expert supervision I'm having to learn fast.
Come up
to the right.
Keep to the right, yeah. Because there's no water inside the green buoy.
Right.
Bardsey is a notorious final destination where on a rough day it's almost impossible to get there.
Yeah.
Today,
This is not a rough day, is it, Richard?
this is snow. This is fresh. I'll describe this as being fresh.
So these are 2-foot waves
Yes, yes.
compared to
Yeah.
50-foot waves you've been on.
Oh, well, yes, slightly different. And that's the whole magic about being out at sea. You know, yesterday it was totally like a piece of glass. Today there are 2-foot waves, and tomorrow it could be totally different again.
What's the island on the left?
Okay, so the ports on our port side.
What's on the port side?
These nautical terms. The island on the port side is St Tidwell's Island.
St Tidwell's. You know, I knew that I wanted to be a singer because I could sing. Why did you become a sailor? Is it because you could sail from a very early age?
Well, I knew I wanted to be on the sea from a very early age. There was a guy called Sir Francis Chichester, and he went around the world on his own. And I remember there were a yachting magazine called Yachting Monthly, and they had a series of photographs of some of the huge seas in the Southern Ocean. And I said, one day I'm gonna do that.
Tell me a little bit about those swells that you faced.
In the Southern Ocean, the seas down there are just ginormous. It's quite frightening at times, but also quite beautiful in another way. We had 40 days of slamming into some of these seas, and it's quite, at times you wonder if you're ever going to climb out of it, and at other times you don't want it to end.
And there it is. After an exciting 2-hour sail from Pwllheli, we get our first glimpse of Ynys Enlli, Bardsey Island, where it's rumoured thousands of pilgrims are buried. In the Middle Ages, it was said that 3 pilgrimages to Bardsey were equivalent to 1 to Rome. It's only 2 miles from the nearest point on the Welsh mainland, but even today, the powerful tidal flows and currents can make it seem a lot further.
So for me, when I was young, you know, the island itself never meant much, and I guess, again, taking it for granted. But now it's more mystical, Wagnerian, it's more my Valhalla. What about you?
I think Bardsey's always been that to me. It's the island of the 20,000 saints.
Welcome to Bardsey. And the welcoming committee as well, look.
Right up until the middle of the 20th century, the island had a substantial population, capable of supporting a school and a Methodist chapel. But there are now only a handful of permanent residents, and among them is the poet Christine Evans. Tell me a little about the name Ynys Enlli.
Ynys Enlli in Welsh can mean island in the current or island in the tide. And of course it is a very difficult place to get to. Even today, with modern boats, about 1/3 of all crossings are cancelled because of bad weather. So you're very lucky to be here, really, to have got here. In English, of course, it's called Bardsey and has been since at least 1188, when Giraldus Cambrensis wrote on his tours through Wales, he wrote about the island. And that's taken to mean the island of Barda, who was a Viking chieftain, Bardsey. In my work, I try to celebrate the island and the people who've lived here, because it is a privilege to me to live in a place like this.
Andros, Pliny called it. Edri, to ancient Greek map drawers of the western edge. A world of waves and pouring air, the lighthouse's long, steady stroke in the flux of the sea. An island where so many came to die. Fragments of land and a whole place peopled, generous with truths between the tide's twin ceremonies of dark and light. Christine has brought me through the rain to the spiritual heart of the island. The ruins of the medieval abbey that once welcomed thousands upon thousands of pilgrims.
So are there really 20,000 saints buried on the island?
I don't think anyone's ever counted them, Bryn, but certainly over 1,000 years, it doesn't seem too many. I think it was partly because of the tradition that if you died here or on the way to the island and you lived a holy life, your soul wouldn't go to hell. And that was a great thing in the Middle Ages when they were tormented by visions of that place. Even in the 21st century, there's a feeling of peace and tranquility and of spirituality. I mean, we're surrounded by people who came here to die and to be buried in a special place, and I think that gives it something extra.
Ever since my first visit, I've always wanted to sing in the chapel on Bardsey. Franz Schubert's Litany for the Feast of All Souls could have been written for this wonderful island of saints and pilgrims. But first, there was the small matter of getting a piano to the island. In Frieden, alle Seelen, die vollbracht ein banges Quellen, die vollendet süßen Traum, lebenssatt geboren kaum, aus der Welt hinüberschieden. Alle Seelen ruhen in Frieden. Und die nie der Sonne lachten, unter Mond auf Dornen wachten, Gott im reinen Himmelslicht, einst zu sehen von Angesicht, alle, die von hinnen schieden. Bardsey is owned and run by a trust, and as well as welcoming day trips to the island, they also rent out holiday homes here. The warden of the island who oversees all of this is Emyr Roberts from Denbigh. Emyr came to live here 3 years ago after many years working as a landscape gardener in the Middle East. But after all that time abroad, he's never lost his love for the classic British garden.
What a beautiful garden you have here. Can I take it home?
Well, you can have the same. It's not that difficult if you know what you're doing. What I'm trying to do with it really is to make it match with the houses, you know, from the time, a typical Victorian garden, if you like. So in my mind's eye, you know, I can imagine somebody from the 1870s walking into here and they'd know exactly what everything is. There'd be nothing strange about this, you know. Just they feel at home with the place as it was then.
All I can hear now is the bees, the birds. It's like the welcome sounds of Enchi, you know, the sea lions, the sheep, the black cows. Fantastic.
Yeah, you've got the sound of summer, haven't you, you know?
Emyr is taking me up to the top of Mynydd Enchi, the high point of the island. And looking back over to the Llŷn Peninsula, it's not hard to understand why this crossing is so treacherous.
You can see the currents when you're looking down at the sea as well, can't you?
Yeah. They say there's about 8 currents in here.
8 currents?
Yeah, and it's supposed to be one of the most dangerous stretches of water in the world.
Emyr, I find this place magical, mystical. What's your favourite bit?
Yes, it's all of that. And the solitude, you know, and you have time to yourself, you know. And yes, in the summer, it's very nice meeting different people. But then when winter comes, the place changes completely, you know, and it becomes bleak and dark. And I like that too, you know.
So, in essence, do you think you'll ever leave the place?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. It'd be nice not to, anyway. I've no desire to go off here, to be honest with you. I mean, yeah, I go off for Christmas and New Year, but that's about all I need, really.
Unfortunately, it's time for me to leave Ynys Enchi. But this place is magnetic, and I know I'll return. The next stop on my journey of exploration through the familiar, yet unknown places so close to my home is Portmeirion, the eccentric Italianate village resort near Porthmadog. Portmeirion was built by the Welsh architect Sir Clough Williams-Ellis between 1925 and 1973. It's like a little slice of the Italian Riviera transplanted to the coast of North Wales. The resort is now run by his grandson, Robin Llywelyn.
So, Robin, your granddad lived here from the age of 4. So how did he stumble on this place?
Well, he had been searching for an ideal location around the coast of Ireland, Britain, looking for some island or some peninsula where he could develop his ideas of conservation and seemly development. His idea was that you could develop even a naturally beautiful place without spoiling it, given sufficient loving care and skill. And it was really just a happy accident that he found Portmeirion, or Aberya as it was called then.
Was he a cheeky chap? Did he like to play jokes?
Oh, yes.
Visual jokes?
He had a great sense of humour, and Portmeirion is full of these quirky little sort of details. For example, his own head stuck on the edge of the colonnade there, looking over the piazza, and trompe-l'oeils, windows painted on. If there was a chimney stack that he needed to hide, he would put a piece of cut-out metal to hide it. And if he couldn't find a suitable statue, he would have something cut out of sheet metal and painted. So in a way, it is a bit of a stage set, and very theatrical, as you say.
An Italianate village calls for a bit of Italian romance. Paolo Tosti's serenade to his beloved.
Vola
Oh serenata, la mia diletta è sola, e con la bella testa abbandonata posa tra le lenzuola. Oh serenata vola, oh serenata vola, splende pura la luna, l'aria il silenzio stende, e dietro i veli dell'alcova bruna la lampada s'accende. Pura la luna splende, pura la luna splende, vola serenata, vola serenata, vola. Allah, Allah. One of the distinctive features of Portmeirion is the way it seems to blend into the landscape, especially the extensive woodlands and gardens that are part of the estate. Arwel Hughes is the head gardener here, and he's especially proud of this area known as the Gwycht, or the Wild.
The Gwycht, where we are now, the woodland, has always been very much a part of Portmeirion. Over 70 acres of woodland here with miles and miles of walks and very big mature trees. The trees are here since the mid-1800s. This area where we actually are now was redeveloped in the mid-80s when the ponds were relined and dug out, and extensive planting of different camellias and magnolias and all sorts of plants from all over the world here. We hardly get any snow. We don't get any severe frost.
That's good for a gardener, isn't it?
It's good for the gardens, yes. So we're able to grow exotics, yes.
Was Sir Clough interested in the gardens as he was in the buildings?
Oh yes, he's very interested in the gardens, but he'd spend most of his time with his builders, but many a time we'd see him walking around the woodland here with his secateurs and chopping this and chopping that, yes.
Cherish the past, adorn the present, and construct for the future. That was Sir Clough's motto, and I'm so proud to think that he built his philosophy here in North Wales. Cariwch med David van Helin i mi, Caesiad cyn marw roet on arni. Codwch fan wylaw i gyrraedd atant, dilach bendithio fy ngweddw am plant. Dafydd y Garreg Wen, David of the White Rock, a melody inspired by legendary harpist David Owen, who lived nearby in Morfa Bychan. And so, on with my journey. Blaenau Ffestiniog next, just around the corner. And it's hard to believe that this place is barely 10 miles from Portmeirion. We could be on another planet. This is a rugged landscape that's been shaped by slate production. It's said that ancient Rome was roofed by slate from this area. But slate, llechi, also shaped people's lives. This town grew up around the mines and quarries of the slate industry. It has its own distinctive culture and way of life. There's nowhere quite like Blaenau Ffestiniog. I'm on my way to the Llechwedd Slate Caverns on the edge of Blaenau Ffestiniog, a place I remember visiting as a child. There's still a working quarry further up the mountain, but the rest of it is now a major tourist attraction and educational centre. Bore da, Brian.
Croeso I Llechwedd, welcome to Llechwedd.
Thank you very much.
My guide on this tour of the caverns is Brian Smith.
And we're going into the mountain, are we?
We're going into the mountain. We'll take you in about half a mile or so.
Well, I can't remember anything because I was 7 years old when I came here last.
Well, from what I understand, we had trouble with you at that time as well. We'll close the door and take you underground.
We're traveling in comfort, but for generations of miners, there was nothing comfortable about this industry.
It's hard to think what it must be like working underground by candlelight.
Yes.
Digging all these tunnels out. There's roughly about 25 miles of tunnels in here as well.
25 miles.
25 miles.
Whether they were working deep underground or high above in towering quarries, producing slate was a difficult and dangerous business.
Now we're inside what we call a chamber. It was out of chambers like these that all the slate was mined. And there are over 250 of these chambers throughout the mine. Chambers usually would be worked out about 36 to 40 feet wide, and the average size chamber about 80, 90 feet high at the back. 5 floors above us, 10 floors below us. So it's a pretty fair-sized mine.
And we can see some of the implements.
Yeah, some of the
here.
tools that they used. This is what we call a jumper. This is what they used to drill the holes with. So basically, lift it up and bang it down.
It's called a jumper.
Jumper. Yeah.
So that's why there's these...
All these marks on the walls.
The marks, the veins. And then you just whack it in there.
Bang it into the hole.
And then twist it.
Twist it as it went down. Yeah. So a hole the length of the jumper, that would take them 6 to 7 hours. Today with modern drills, same depth of hole, 10 to 15 minutes maybe.
Oh, it's tough, isn't it?
Well, they call them the good old days, don't they?
Once the blocks of slate were quarried out of the rock, they were expertly split and dressed, ready for the rooftops of the world. Emrys Evans and Falmai Roberts both have a long association with the slate mining communities of North Wales. Emrys started as an apprentice in the 1930s, and Falmai's father was a quarryman throughout his life.
The first thing I remember really about the quarries is we used to go and meet our fathers, and the first thing you'd hear would be this noise, and what it was, the boots, the quarry boots.
Of the men coming home from work?
There was hundreds of them, wasn't there?
Tell me about this special way that you used to come home from work down the mountain slopes.
Oh, with the little carguis, we called it.
Yes.
The wild car.
It's a good name, isn't it?
It's a good name. There's a number of inclines, 3 of them, from top to bottom. And you used to come down on these little cars. They were quite all right, as long as you treated them properly.
Yes.
Quite a number of people, well, fell, tumbled, and some were killed, going too fast. We as young blood then, of course, wanted to go fast.
What about this place where you used to meet for lunch?
The cabin.
The cabin.
That was a half hour in my time.
Yeah.
The union might have a matter to bring up, Quarrymen's Union. And we used to hold Eisteddfoda in the cabin.
Now you're talking my terms.
Yes. Well, everybody was expected to take part in these Eisteddfoda.
Yeah.
Quite a variety of competitions, singing, reciting, telling a story. And we used to try to eat within the first 10 minutes so that you could have the 20 minutes of the half hour.
So the hymn singing must have been pretty special around this area. What about the Kamambagani?
The Kamambagani was wonderful singing. because the chapels used to be full downstairs and the balconies. I was very fortunate. My father had a beautiful tenor voice.
Yes.
And he used to love singing his hymns. And he did win the Eisteddfod in the quarry. The chair, about that big. Yes, yeah, and I've still got it.
And so to the last lap of my journey, another slate town, Llanberis, which means that the end of my quest is in sight. Llanberis is at the foot of Snowdon, and today I'm here to do something that's long overdue. So I can see the summits of Snowdon from my house. I've been up there with the Snowdon Mountain Railway. I'm past my 40s now, so it's about time that I walked up to the summit, I think. I might give those goats a little fright, and I might sing at the summit, so wish me luck. I'm heading first for Llanberis Station, definitely not to catch the mountain train. I'm meeting John Ellis Roberts, who used to be a warden of the Snowdonia National Park and was a founder member of the mountain rescue team.
Bore da, John.
Hello, bore da.
Good
How are
day
you?
for it?
Yes, lovely. Should be all right. Bit of sun, a bit of cloud to keep us not too warm.
Yeah.
Lovely.
This track, is this the one for the Snowdon race?
Yes, it is, and I think the...
John's joining me for the first part of my epic trek.
So, John, do you think that we take these things for granted? You know, it's the first time I've walked up Snowdon.
Yeah,
Why is that?
Well, I don't know, it's rather strange. I was brought up in Blaenau. My father was a quarryman, and he didn't like me going into the mountains because they thought it was dangerous.
So keeping these paths must be a huge undertaking.
Yes, and especially because Snowdon attracts so many people, sort of nearly 500,000 people over the year. 1 year goes up. So when you've got the sort of movement of people up and coming down, there's more movement. So yeah, the National Park have been doing quite a lot of work in the last sort of 25 years, and a lot of these stones have got to be airlifted in because they're just too heavy to carry up. And then the work gangs have got to walk up to work like the old quarrymen and work in all sorts of severe conditions.
John, how did you become involved with the mountain rescue?
Well, I think as a mountaineer, I think all people who go onto mountains have got a duty to assist other people that get sort of injured or lost or whatever on the mountains. Because there was an increase in the number of people going the hills, more accidents, local mountaineers formed together in Llanberis Valley, formed the Llanberis Rescue Team, and also in the Ogwen Valley there. So it sort of progressed from there. But in those days, it used to be a matter of getting out, the early days as it were, no helicopters, going out with a stretcher, picking somebody up in all sorts of weathers and at night and things like this.
Some very dramatic rescues then.
Yeah, there's been sort of one or two in difficult weather conditions. There was a naval commander climbing on Llywydd, which is 1,000 feet of a cliff, and about 300 feet from the top he'd slipped and broken a leg. So we decided to put him in a tragsit, like a harness on my back, and I was lifted, both of us, by the team to the top 300 feet with this chap on my back, and that was sort of fairly dramatic. Well, the halfway cafe, a bit of a stop, a bit of a respite.
Well, thank you very much, John. It's been a real
Croeso, a chitha hefyd.
Yeah.
Take care.
Yeah. I'm going to go for a cup of tea now.
Chi hwyl lawr on ta. Hwyl on.
So as John continues on his way, I'm dropping in for a chat with Alwena Jones, who runs the Halfway Cafe, which has become a very welcome stopping off point for weary walkers like me.
Smile, Alwena.
Hello, Bryn. Sut wyt ti?
How are you?
Croeso.
Cup of tea, please.
Llefrith? Milk?
Milk, please.
Thank
yes.
you. I'll bring it through to you, Bryn.
Thank you.
There you go, Bryn.
Diolch yn fawr. The most welcome cup of tea in
Cup of tea
Snowdonia.
there for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So how do you get to work every day?
Well, I bring the car up to my brother's house Paddoti.
Yes.
And then I walk up from there.
How far is it?
It's about 2 miles from
Yeah.
my brother's house, and it takes me about half an hour to walk up.
Yeah, and is this a totally new building?
Yes, yes. The old building got blown off with the wind in 1993.
Yes.
And then we decided, because the wind was getting stronger every year, we decided to make a better quality building, safer. Sometimes people come up, not well prepared, and they're being caught out in the weather, because the weather changes so quick. Sometimes they use this as a shelter, and we had to get them rescued from here, really. And the wind is like 100, 120 miles an hour gust.
Wow.
Yeah, so they use it as a refuge and shelter, and they're so glad to come in and have a break, and from the weather as well.
It must be a fantastic place to come and work. You're literally looking over there now towards Cwm Pennant, over the mountain is Waun Fawr.
Yeah.
Isn't it a stunning area?
Lovely. And what's nice, there's no 2 days the same. The colours are changing. The colours of everything is changing. The greens, the stones, the slates, everything is so different every day. That's what makes it interesting, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, lovely. I wouldn't change this for the world.
Well, it really is best foot forward for my final attack on the summit. There's definitely no turning back now.
Wow. Just truly magnificent. Its serenity, its beauty, makes me feel slightly disappointed in myself that I've never been here before. The changing colours, it's like the rocks are talking to you. Truly inspiring. I think Oscar Wilde said once, "I'm very easily pleased. Only the best will do."
And the closer I get to the summit, the more my pace quickens. I told you those goats would need to look out.
That's it. The summit of Snowdon, Copar Wyddfa, so near and yet so far. Fresh as a daisy, on top of the world. It feels fantastic, monumental.
And I'm so lucky. Apart from the odd wisp of cloud, it's a beautifully clear day.
So I can see here Ynys Enlli, 36, amazing. Towards Anglesey, Caernarfon, towards where I went to school, Dyffryn Nanlle, the Nanlle Ridge, and where my parents' farm is. The Graig Goch, Nant Cyllachaf, where I was brought up. It's just fantastic.
I started this journey wanting to get more acquainted with my own part of Wales, and I think I have. From up here, I can see so much of what lies close to home, and today I feel more proud of it than ever before. But there's still one thing left to do.
I've always wanted to sing up here. How about bringing up a little piano and singing a song live to the mountains?
Weather looks nice.
Well, I'm ready.
Let's go.
I am dreaming of the mountains of my home, of the mountains where in childhood I would roam. I have dwelt neath southern skies where the summer never dies. But my heart is in the mountains of my home. I can see the quiet churchyard down below, where the mountain breezes wander to and fro. And when God my soul will keep, it is there I want to sleep, with those dear old folks that loved me long ago.
Bodnant Garden in Snowdonia faces some tough challenges on Tuesday night at 7:30 here on BBC Two Wales.